This is what being a NASCAR fan is all about. Singular history and tradition.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is so special.
Unmatched on-track intensity.
We gotta go.
And triple-header playoffs action to ratchet up the stakes. Throw in a can't-miss concert, camping, and the legendary atmosphere of Talladega Boulevard. And you've got more than a race. You've got Talladega. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover with you from our Tuscaloosa studios on what is a very busy Thursday, getting you ready for one of the games of the year in college football. Number 2 Georgia against number 4 Alabama here in Tuscaloosa. We'll start our show by taking a look at what's coming up thanks to our friends RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us this smart board to go through everything in a real interactive way here on the show today. First things first, we'll visit with one of the defensive backs who's starting to earn some more playing times on special teams, especially Jahlil Hurley, an outstanding new member of the Crimson Tide from Florence, Alabama. We'll get his thoughts on what this Alabama season has been like, plus thoughts on his high school teammate, now college teammate, Neeland Hibbett. Then we'll visit with Chris Stewart as he had a very busy week leading up to this Alabama-Georgia game. So instead of having him on our Tuesday show, we have him on Thursday to preview the Crimson Tide and the Bulldogs. Also previewing the game, we'll have George Teague, a former Crimson Tide defensive back, a longtime player in the NFL. We'll get his thoughts on this matchup as our national guest of the week. And then we'll go to the other booth. Scott Howard, the longtime voice of the Georgia Bulldogs, will be along to give us a detailed scouting report on Georgia and kind of let us know where the Bulldogs stand in terms of injuries going into this ball game. Then we'll close out the show as always on Thursday with last night's final word from Kalen DeBoer at Baumhauer's Victory Grill. For head coach Kalen DeBoer, we'll close out the show as we get ready for the Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs. Mentioned 6:30 is the start time. Our radio coverage will start at 3:30 coming up all across the network as you have Georgia ranked second in the country, 3-0. Now they are 1-0 in SEC play, having defeated Kentucky 13-12 in week 3. Alabama looking for its first SEC win of the year in its SEC opener, 3-0 as well, coming off that great win against Wisconsin. Alabama has enjoyed the upper hand against Georgia, not only recently winning 8 of the last 9 matchups, but historically in Tuscaloosa. Now a lot of games are played in Birmingham at Legion Field as well, but you got to keep in mind Alabama 8-2 against Georgia in Tuscaloosa, including the last time that the Bulldogs came here in 2020. Some other notes around Alabama athletics. Soccer team home tonight against Missouri as Alabama so far has looked good in SEC play, posting draws against Texas and Tennessee, now taking on Missouri tonight, and then Sunday taking on a very good Georgia team coming up in Athens at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. Volleyball team started SEC play last night and really hard-fought match against one of the top teams in the SEC, the Tennessee Lady Vols. Fell in 5 sets, but it was a strong first showing for Rashinda Reed and the Crimson Tide volleyball team. Rivalry week continues. First it was Tennessee on Wednesday. Now Alabama will be at Auburn coming up on Sunday before some home matches coming up in Tuscaloosa. Speaking of Tuscaloosa, here you go. Vector Security Champions Lane, the place to be to get ready for Alabama against Georgia, as all of this will start opening up at 11:30 for you to enjoy everything that's going on around college football. We know College Game Day will be done at 11, so just come on over to Vector Security Champions Lane. We have so much coming up. I wanted to spotlight the Bud Light backyard just in front of the Tuska statue. Lauren Elena is our featured performer coming up this week, a country music superstar, a contestant on American Idol. She will start at 4 o'clock and go all the way until 5 o'clock. Some timing has changed with Alabama Athletics, encouraging all fans to be inside Bryant-Denny Stadium as early as possible for that 6:30 kick. So make sure you check out Lauren Elena from 4 to 5. And then there are some opportunities as well to get some autographs thanks to our friends at the Alabama Public Health. The player autograph tents will be set up right next to that Bud Light backyard. Tennis team will be alongside that Bud Light backyard stage from 2 to 3, signing autographs, and then there will be different waves of Alabama men's basketball players between 3 and 4 and 4 and 5 with the autographs there. We'll have the Nissan Heisman House. I mean, just so much going on. The Legends Lounge Beer Garden will be open starting at 11:30. There's never a cover charge for that. 21 and above can enjoy the Legends Lounge Beer Garden, and then there's also the Kingsford Tailgate Tour as well. Just so much going on. The Walk of Champions Champions at 425. Watch that, come back over, hang out at Champions Lane. More details available at championslane.com. But again, it's a very busy week, a lot of food trucks and interactive displays for this week's game between Alabama and Georgia. Of course, it's free and open to the public, and it will be open at 11:30 a.m. Vector Security Champions Lane, your best way to get ready for Alabama against Georgia. Each and every show, we visit with a member of the Crimson Tide football team, and this week it is Jahlil Hurley, as we've kind of kept our focus on defensive backs this week. Tuesday's show, we had Bray Hubbard. Now we visit with Jahlil Hurley, an entertaining conversation about where things stand for the Crimson Tide getting ready for Georgia. Welcome back to Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Now pleased to be joined by Alabama defensive back Jahlil Hurley as we get set for Alabama against Georgia coming up. And you got to be excited, man. How is everything going as you prepare for this matchup against the Georgia Bulldogs?
I mean, just the same as every game. Just do what you got to do. Prepare for the things you have to prepare for. What Georgia's going to do, and just simple things like that. Just doing our thing, what Bama does, and just doing Bama things.
We're really excited for this Saturday. For you, what have you liked about the starts of the season?
Just the way we played as a team, and the way we just like last year, just like it's still being a brotherhood, and it's still like a link type of thing, like letting their series know. Just because of the whole Saban retiring and DeBoer coming in, just the team playing as a team and playing hard and being dominant for real.
How about for you and your role?
I mean, I'm just playing my role for real. When my number's called, that's when the time comes. So just playing my role, being a good teammate, putting the work in. That's all I can do.
And that's included some opportunities on special teams. Anything you're really proud of from this year so far?
I mean, just all I can do is just when my coaches do call my numbers to do my job and put my best effort, attitude, and toughness on the field.
Well, you've certainly done that for the Crimson Tide so far this year. Redshirted last year. Let's go all the way back to the beginning of your football journey. First of all, tell us where you're from.
Florence, Alabama, just north of here, 2.5 hours.
How'd you get introduced to the sport of football?
My brother and sister's dad had me in football, like at a different program, like across the river from where I stayed. Like I didn't play for real, and so I quit for a year. And then he was like, "Okay, we finna go back this year." I'm like, "Nah, I don't want to play football. I don't want to." So he kind of like, "Yeah, we gonna go play football." So I'm like, "Okay." Didn't play there either. And then one day in practice, my coach Coach Damien, you feel me? Shout out Coach Damien, you feel me? He just gave me the ball one time, and then that was it. Took off.
Rest was history?
Rest was history.
What position was first for you then?
Running back.
Okay.
Running back and safety.
Yeah, how much do you enjoy that, especially getting to play on the opposite side of the ball? Now we see you on defense.
I don't like getting hit. I like to hit people. I don't like getting hit. Yeah. That's not it. Nah.
Definitely understand that. Again, from Florence, went to Florence High School. You're a little bit younger than Neeland Hibbett. What kind of big man on campus was Neeland?
Older guy for sure. Like when I first came in as an 8th grader, I was like, Neeland was like one of the first people like I knew about, like you feel me, talk to. So like I've known Neeland for a minute now. He was like even in high school, like he taught me things and like showed me the way of like being new and all of that. So like he's been a very big blessing to me.
What's it like to reconnect with him and also get to see him gain a lot of notoriety with all his social media stuff? But then he's one of the best long snappers in college football.
It was crazy because like his last high school game in high school, I was like, "Oh, I'll see you in 3 years." And he was like, "Bet." And here we are. So yeah, and it's kind of crazy though, like because like when he got here and blew up on TikTok and all that, it was kind of crazy. I was happy for him. So like it's crazy to see somebody from like our small hometown do that. So and I want to be the next to do it. So on track to try to do that.
So even as a young player in high school, you had that confidence you could play at Alabama?
Yes, sir, for sure.
What gave you that confidence?
Just the people I had around me, for sure. My teammates, my friends, my family, and then just I feel like the work that I put in. Just like you put in so much work for something, like what else can I get from it other than greatness? You feel me? So it's just like the work and the mindset and the type of the person I am. Like I can't fall short of being great. You feel me? And that's part of like coming to Bama, like with Saban and after Saban too, it's still greatness. Like you feel me? Chasing greatness.
Yeah, absolutely. Who are some coaches along your high school journey that made you better?
Coach Ellis, Coach Coleman, who was here now. He's a GA with the safeties here now. It's crazy. Coach Lake, Coach Lane. If I didn't say Coach Hester, Coach Waldrop, Coach Morrison for sure. Coach T-Bone, all of my every coach I really has had a big impact on my life for real. Like even Coach T-Rob, Saban, all of them. Coach Mo this year, Coach Kobe Johnson, our GA, and like every coach that I came in contact with, they helped me out and taught me things that I didn't know before.
So again, you had Alabama on your mind already. What was the recruiting process like? I mean, were you pretty much dead set on coming here no matter what?
Okay, so at first I was like, I'm a commit to Bama, and I'm gonna see like, okay, maybe like I might, like, cause like I'm a hometown kid, like I'm a Bama boy, so I'm like, yeah, like I'm gonna commit to Bama. So, and then like LSU, Auburn, they tried to get me late, and so like I went in, like I talked to them and like, but I was like, nah, I can't do that, nah. So I can't leave to stay. I gotta stay. You feel me? Go play for Coach Saban, go play for Bama. You feel me? Make a name for myself at home.
And you certainly have. And again, you got to join the Crimson Tide last year. You got to be part of the last team that Nick Saban coached. We always hear about him during practice spending a lot of time with the defensive backs, even though T-Rob, position coach, Coach Saban was always around. How do you see that? How'd that make you better?
Just like you know how people in interviews get the speeches. It's not like a speech. It's just like Coach Saban every day. And I feel like being like a 18-year-old, like being like you're turning into a man, you feel me? You're trying to learn the ways of college football, college in general, you feel me? Just being around somebody like Coach Saban every single day, that's a victory. Like that's a life plus, in my opinion. And I wrote down everything that I could possibly write down from him, just so I can keep it for myself and maybe for my kids and my family or my team one day. So you know what I'm saying? It's just a once in a lifetime experience for real, because I don't think another team's gonna. Obviously, another team's not gonna be able to do that. So it's humbling and it's honorable. You feel me?
So a lot of good wisdom that he would give to you. How about the speeches in front of the team, whether it was like kind of the Monday meeting to kind of get everybody on track for game week, or sometimes pregame speech night before? How do you motivate you guys?
I mean, it's all the same for real. The message is the message. The work is the work, and what you have to do is what you have to do. So that's really it. Like from Monday from the opening talk on Monday to the opening talk of the game for Saturday, is we have to dominate. We have to do our job. We have to play for the man next to us. So that's really what it was and what it is.
So Coach Saban retires at that Wednesday afternoon meeting. In a few hours, Kalen DeBoer and his staff comes in. What'd you like about this new crew from the beginning?
I mean, just the way they came in fast. Like, okay, we know we're behind. We got to get this done, this done, this done. Just the way they came in and just got to work for real, and put all of us to work and showed us like, okay, like we know this is new. Like I'm a new head coach. We're a new staff here, but we come here and we mean business. So that's really it. Like, can't come. Yeah, you got to come here about that business, because like everybody come here trying to beat us, and like we have to be on top of our business every week. And I think our coaches do a great job of having us on top of our business every week.
And then also you get a new position coach with all of this, Coach Maurice, a linguist who was a head coach previously at Buffalo.
Yeah.
Now he comes to be an assistant in Alabama. Have you liked the way he runs this room?
Yeah, Coach Mo, like he's totally different from like for real any DB, any cornerback coach I've had. Cause like just the way he talk, like it's like he gonna make sure you know, like I'm doing this. He do stuff like that. He gonna make sure you know, and it's like he gonna like say like we're like before practice. He gonna come in like we're gonna get in our stance. We're gonna go through our movements before practice, before walkthroughs. So it's just like he's very like technical, so like and very like down to detail. So like even if you might have he might have picked the ball or got an incompletion, but like if it's not, you might have took that step wrong or went that way when you're supposed to go that way, but he gonna correct you because you did it wrong, but you made the play, but you still did it wrong. So I feel like that's really big. That's really big. You feel me? Because like most people, they don't do that, and I feel like that builds character and greatness for real.
And then how'd you see the chemistry build from your group? Because probably of all the positions on this football team, there are more newcomers in this room. But how'd you see everyone come together?
I feel like all of us are young, other than like Damani for real, but like we all still like the same for real. Like all of us, like I feel like all of us kind of have the same personality. Like some of us are quiet some days, like you feel me, like people like that. But like when everybody like together, it's like we all grew up together. Like we all from the same high school, from the same team. Like we I don't know, like we all came here together in the same class. Let's just say that, since we didn't. But we all came here together in the same class. We all came here on visits together. That's how it is. And I love my boys, you feel me? And you feel me? We gonna do that, you feel me?
He certainly have done that. And again, great starts of the year. How about Keon Sabb? 2 interceptions first game. Do you like that?
Yeah, for sure. Cause I already knew he could do it. Cause I was like when we played him last year against in the Rose Bowl, I paid attention to him, and I seen like we was like getting him out the port, and I'm like, yeah, he like that. Like he coming down, he gonna stick some. You feel me? They like nah. I'm like yeah, like he like that. So yeah, I expected that for sure.
Yeah, that's certainly good. And do you love the swarm D mentality that Coach Womack's brought too?
I don't think I would ever thought of that. Swarm D, I like that because it promotes swarming to the ball and getting your hat on the man. All 11 for sure. He might even come off the sideline on him for real.
You might get a flag for that, man.
No, we ain't gonna do that. We ain't gonna do that. It was just a joke.
Well, we're certainly excited for what's ahead for this football team. You mentioned the Georgia game coming up. All the national attention will be on Tuscaloosa, Alabama. How much do you really relish an opportunity like this?
I feel like it's once in a lifetime for real, because new coach, new coaching staff. Like people say, a non-experienced secondary. What bigger does it get other than Alabama versus Georgia and Tuscaloosa on the same field? Who gonna have the most views? Us. So I don't know. It's just about us doing what we have to do and doing our jobs. There's nothing more than that. So.
Going back to the defense for a second, too, only a couple of touchdowns allowed this year. What's made the defense so good, especially in the red zone, forcing either a turnover or a field goal, just making sure teams don't score?
That's one thing Coach Womack prides our swarm D on is red zone, third down, and just not scoring because that's how you win the game, right? You score more points to other teams, so it's just like what we pride. Like that's what swarm D has pride in those three things, and so I feel like. Yeah, those are just things we strive to do as a defense.
Any game day traditions for you? Stuff you got to do each game to make sure you're locked in?
Probably just prayer, for real. Really nothing. Music. Talk to my teammates. Nothing really. Just being that, like Coach Mo says, it's like a mental build-up all week. So from like Monday, off day, all the way to kickoff, it's a mental build-up, and so like Coach Mo say, it's got to be in you, not on you. You feel me? So this in is not on us. You feel me? So it's just a mental build-up, and that's how I do it.
Well, Jahlil, we look forward to seeing you make some huge plays for the Crimson Tide coming up the rest of the year. Just thank you for your time today on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Roll Tide.
Sir. Roll Tide.
Time is running out to secure your seat at NASCAR's biggest and baddest track. This October 4th through the 6th, the NASCAR playoffs will make their long-awaited return to Talladega Superspeedway, where the only thing bigger than the action on the track is the unrivaled fan experience. Don't miss out on a 3-race weekend full of playoff action that will have you on the edge of your seat all race long. Get your tickets now for Talladega Playoffs Event Weekend, October 4th through the 6th at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. Fun conversation with Jahlil Hurley. Again, we visited with Bray Hubbard earlier this week as well. That interview available to watch on demand on the CTSN YouTube page. Chris Stewart is getting ready to go. He's rested and ready for this Week 4 game for Alabama against the Georgia Bulldogs. Chris, of course, was on the call last year when Alabama defeated Georgia in the SEC Championship, and now he's rearing to go and even gives the fans a pep talk coming up in today's conversation here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Here's the voice of the Crimson Tide, Chris Stewart.
Alabama against Georgia. Chris, it's good to see you. I feel like we've been building for this game, not only for just a few weeks of this season, but really for months. Everyone's excited about Saturday in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, and it's rare, Roger, that this is a regular season matchup. I go back my entire lifetime. It was the one time that Alabama fans used to pull for Auburn in a regular season was when Auburn and Georgia would meet, because in the old way of doing it, no SEC championship game, and I think the Sugar Bowl rule, which that's where the SEC champion always went, that if there was a tie between league champions, the team that had not been more recently got to go to the Sugar. So Bama fans would be forced with that conundrum of, holy cow, we got to pull for Auburn to win, or at least tie, put a blemish on Georgia's record and take care of business yourself. But yeah, it goes way back. It's obviously had even greater relevance because of the national championship matchups. I seriously debated wearing my Christopher Mobley shirt that does say Tide and then said 2nd and 26 underneath it. I thought that would be a bit much, but I actually do have one of those. But it will. It's another important game. Here's the reality, though, and this is what's different. This could be the first of 3 meetings potentially between the two teams, and if you win, you're not guaranteed to get to Atlanta with all that lies ahead. You're also, if you lose, nowhere near out of anything. But obviously, if you do win, it gives you the inside track. It gives you bragging rights, at least for a couple of months. And it does check one off the list. It's big for both sides. Georgia's trying to figure out if they can beat a healthy Alabama team, which has not happened in the last 9 meetings between the two programs, because their only win was when you didn't have an experienced receiver. And from the Bama perspective, can you continue the same success with a new head coach that you've had previously in those 9 matchups? So a lot to learn and a lot to be interested in from all sides, but it's Bama, Georgia. It's big, regardless of what you're looking at or how you're looking at it.
And for the Crimson Tide, everyone keeps talking about all the distractions that a game like this brings with everything going on around the football game. But Chris, I feel like you'll probably share the same opinion I do. There's been so many distractions for the first 3 Alabama football games when you look at the start of the season with Coach DeBoer, the Saban Field dedication, then going on the road to Wisconsin for what was the game of the day that day in college football. And it seems like this team has really handled all the adversity or just everything that's going on around this program really well.
They have. And, this goes to what we've talked about, and people do this. It's natural, the comparison of what are things like for this team with this coach as opposed to the previous for 17 years. Much like Coach Saban's teams did, I think they've taken on the personality of their head coach. And in the case of Kalen DeBoer, it's steady as she goes. And that's what this team has shown. Again, it's a small sample size, but exactly to your point, they've stayed focused, they've stayed steady, they've stayed on task, and they've been up for each challenge that they faced so far. Clearly, it's the biggest challenge to date. But in terms of how they will handle it, maneuver through everything, I don't think this is going to be a problem at all.
How important was it to have the offensive line settled during the Wisconsin game? And then we saw some good results as a result of that.
It's huge. I mean, you're playing the most physical, tough group that you're going to face when Georgia comes in, and you better be at full strength. And Alabama, thankfully, is. They got a chance to see what that looks like, and also then go work over the last 2 weeks over on the things that you need to improve on. So I think that was absolutely critical to be the best you can be against the Bulldogs. And obviously they were terrific against Wisconsin, but also clearly this is a much different animal, no pun intended, that you're facing in the Dogs as opposed to the Badgers.
How similar are the Bulldogs to the team we saw a year ago in Atlanta?
I think there's a lot of similarities, but basically in terms of approach, in terms of personnel, minus the best tight end in the country and a receiver who's obviously an NFL player in McConkey. So do they have an issue replacing that? I think that will be more evident in this game than it's been in the first 3 for them. But I do think Alabama's explosiveness on offense is a difference maker. Georgia's Georgia. We know they're going to be really salty on defense. We know they're going to be more than capable on offense. But I think while neither side has shown all of their cards to date of what they have available, I think we've seen a true picture of who both teams are. And I think who Alabama is on offense gives them an edge in this football game, because the Bama defense is far better than most people anticipated. At the same time, I think the offense may be a tick better than many thought the Tide could be at this point, and that will be a huge advantage going against Georgia.
First matchup between Kalen DeBoer and Kirby Smart coming up on Saturday. Looking at Coach Smart for just a minute, he was, of course, a longtime assistant defensive coordinator for Alabama, won 4 national championships. Do you have any personal memories of Kirby during his time here?
Yeah, playing in a golf tournament with him. And he was recruiting the entire time that we were playing golf. We rode together, and he's wearing it out on the phone, man, trying to make sure he ain't missing a phone call or he's not missing a recruit. He was playing golf with me, as is the case with most people, completely out of necessity. It was a requirement, I think. I may have been a Knicks kids event. I really don't remember. But, that's one that comes to mind. I'll never forget interviewing him in the press or in the locker room. He and Jim McElwain, after that win over LSU. It would be the next national championship for Kirby in Tuscaloosa. It would be the last for Jim McElwain, because I remember talking to Mac, and the athletic director for Colorado State was in the locker room waiting, because as soon as he got through with all of his obligations, Mac said, "Yeah, I'm getting on a plane right now. I'm not even flying back to Tuscaloosa. I'm flying straight to Colorado Springs to go and take over the job." So I remember that night from Kirby. I remember being on the field it's a nice problem to have, but you can't even remember because there were so many. But whatever was the last championship and the last game for Kirby as head
Clemson
coach
in
of
Arizona.
Alabama. Clemson in Arizona, you're exactly right. And the tears on Miss Terry's cheeks as she hugged him goodbye, told him goodbye as he was leaving to go be the Georgia head football coach. And that was the last time that was going to be together, and so much that those two families had shared over the years. Yes, the 4 titles, but there were other staffs that he was a part of for Nick Saban. And when you're a part of Coach Saban's staff, you're a part of Miss Terry's family. And to see the emotion on her face after that is something that I'll never forget. I forgot where, but I haven't forgotten just how emotional that was.
Those are really good stories. Again, it's Alabama against Georgia coming up on Saturday. And Chris, kind of like you wrap up Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show with Coach DeBoer, I want to give you the final word for this interview to the Alabama fans, making sure they're ready to go and do their part coming up on Saturday under the lights.
Can I channel my inner Nick Saban / Scott Cochran? Time to get your minds right. It will be look. You got a real chance to make an impact, and we can talk about all the places that Alabama travels, whether it's Baton Rouge, whether it's College Station, whether it's been Athens or Auburn, wherever, where there's so many hostile environments. I still contend when it's all on the line, there is no place any louder than Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and we need them to be an impact in that ball game from before kickoff. Don't wait till it kicks off. We know it's going to be crazy atmosphere. Be calm, be patient getting inside, but absolutely let it loose once you do. And you see that team come out of the locker room for pregame warmups. Give them what they need during that time, and know you're going to do so during the game itself. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing this matchup and to hearing the Bama fans have the impact that I know they can and will have on that contest.
We look forward to it. Chris Stewart, we can't wait to hear you call the game coming up on Saturday. Just thank you for all the time you've given us today, and roll tide, sir.
Roll Tide, buddy. Thank you.
My name is Jahlil Hurley, and you're watching Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
This is what being a NASCAR fan is all about.
Gets the win at Talladega.
Singular history and tradition. And triple header playoffs action to ratchet up the stakes. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
From Chris Stewart, we go to George Teague, an Alabama football legend, really the heartbeat of that 1992 national championship team before he starred for many, many years in the National Football League. George Teague, as always, analyzing football, as you'll hear about in this conversation. And so far this year, he has liked what he has seen from the Alabama Crimson Tide. So this week, as our national media guest, we wanted to pick the brain of George Teague and get his takes on Alabama and Georgia ahead of Saturday.
George Teague, who has some takes, I'm sure, getting ready for Alabama against Georgia. And George, it is great to see you. Are you excited to get back to Tuscaloosa for this huge game on Saturday?
I'm very excited. I still got a lot of family in the area in Montgomery and the surrounding areas of Tuscaloosa. So not only do I get to watch some good football, but I get an opportunity to visit some family and grab some great food while I'm in Tuscaloosa.
What are your must-visit food spots? Let's talk about that before we dive into football.
Well, one thing I never miss is Buffalo Phil's. I got to do that. I got to go to Bob Howard's as well. So I love wings, as you can tell, right? So one on campus, one off. And Bob Howard's a great friend. I would be remiss if I don't go grab some ribs. So I'm going to go hit Dreamland while we're there. That's why I come in early, so I got days to be able to do a lot of different things in a lot of different places.
That certainly sounds good. So again, you're coming in this weekend for Alabama against Georgia, but let's talk about the first 3 weeks of the year for the Crimson Tide. 3 really good wins. Have you been impressed so far with the beginning of the Kalen DeBoer era?
I have been, and I've watched, reviewed a lot of the tape to kind of see what's going on. Diving into the true nuts and bolts of it, and you just see the amazing talent that we had. Sure, things were rocky a little bit in a couple games, but you see constant improvement. You see the adjustments that the coaches are making. So I'm pretty excited about where we're headed and what we're going. And as long as we continue to progress, particularly in the back end, in the secondary, I think we're going to be fare well throughout the year.
Yeah, what's different about this Alabama scheme on defense in regards to the secondary versus what maybe we saw in previous years with Coach Saban?
I think the biggest thing is how he's allowing them to use their eyes and actually play the ball a little bit more. That's one piece, and it's different. I actually love it. I loved it as a player, being able to, try to view the ball, but it does change your technique and how you have to lean or, how you have to use to cut people off. So it's drastically different than just playing the way man-to-man that Nick Saban used. Not bad one way or the other. It's just different. So if you're coming out of that scheme and trying to do that, you have to adjust to that. In the end, I think it's going to be very beneficial, right? You just have to know when to turn. So sometimes we see guys that are kind of seem like they're open because they're, getting behind us a little bit, but a lot of that's just because your eyes are focused in the backfield and not necessarily on the man.
You've been impressed by Malachi Moore, not only with the play that he's had so far this season for the Crimson Tide, but really his whole career in the way he's been a leader and a captain for this team.
Well, I got a little bit of favoritism about anybody that wears number 13. I don't know why, for some reason. But I've absolutely loved what Malachi has done. I think he's a true leader. I think I like his energy. I like how he tries to motivate people, whether that's being a little bit more flamboyant or actually speaking to someone. I've had an opportunity to speak to him a couple of times, and he's a great guy. But his play, as physical as he is, and the way he comes up and he arrives with bad intentions, man. And you love that out of a safety, but just his ability to be the veteran in that secondary and get them going in the right direction is key.
Really is good to see for the Crimson Tide. You look to the offensive side of the ball. Once again, Jalen Milroe at quarterback. Where have you seen him take some steps forward going into this year?
His strengths, Coach DeBoer and the gang have really helped improve on his mid-range passing. I think that's one key. We know he can throw the ball a mile. He can hit anybody there. We know he can run the ball, and it's definitely a threat there. And I absolutely love that. But you see the improvements in that area. Pre-snap reads, you've seen how they've worked with him and give him the ability to be able to change the direction of a play or protection, and just put the offense in a better position and giving him the authority to do that. So that's going to help him, as he continues to prepare for the next level of football as well.
Do you like the fact, too, we can talk about the receivers in a moment, but Alabama can still play that smash mouth running style with Justice Haynes and Jam Miller? That's got to bring you back.
No, I absolutely love it. Anytime we can run the power game, and that was I didn't know what coach was going to do with that. Is he going to be more zone, which we run zone, inside, outside zone, but the power running game when you're getting into gap schemes, pulling guards, because a lot of people think, oh, you're just too big, you can't really do that. No, that is not what this is what we do at Alabama. Is we pull people and we try to hit you in the ear and move you out of the way. And so I love that when then you have powerful backs like Jam Miller and Justice Haynes, and you add in a runner like Jalen into those schemes, jet sweeps that look like inside and outside zone. You just have so much that you got to prepare for that it makes it hard for defense to defend you.
You said you're partial to number 13s. I imagine David Palmer's pretty partial to the current number 2 that Alabama has right now. And Ryan Williams, Chris Stewart on his first touchdown said the deuce is loose. So that's got to bring you back seeing the speed the number 2 has for Alabama.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to. It was hard to cover David Palmer in my days, and I know it would be very hard to cover Ryan Williams. I don't care how young he is or what he's doing. The dude got some wheels, man. But he also showed some other pieces that he's able to make people miss, and run different routes where it's not just the go route. It was really interesting in the pass game against Wisconsin where you saw that he had to use his brain to actually get open on one of his long passes. So he's accepting coaching as well. So I'm excited to see how this young kid is really going to be, and we're going to need him to make a big play or 2 or 3 in this game on Saturday night.
What do you love about the atmosphere now that we have at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium?
Man, I'm jealous because when I played, we didn't have all the flashing lights, and lights you could just turn off and they pop right back on in 2 seconds. If we turned our lights off back in the day, they were off. You wouldn't come back to the next day. So, one of my favorite part, and it's probably me being a kid in it. There's a lot of traditions that we have at the university and at the game, but for some reason, it's like your background. I love that part when we take out our phones and we just go lights up. Lights down, lights up, lights down. They start getting cranked and all this kind of stuff. And man, I'm just like, I don't know why I like these doggone camera phones so much and these lights, but that's one of my favorite parts of the game as well.
That makes such a great atmosphere. And again, this atmosphere is because of great football from the Crimson Tide and a great opponent in the Georgia Bulldogs. Have you watched much of Georgia this year? What kind of game do you expect coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, so I'm going to say they're similar to us as they've always been, right? They're big, they're fast, their offensive line is strong. People say we need to get some pressure on Carson Beck. Well, we do, but it's going to be hard because they're solid up there. I think the best thing let's say this the right way, right, is that Tate Rutledge isn't playing for them, or we would think anyway. So maybe there could be somewhere where you can try to find some matchups to get some pressure on Carson because he has enough time to stand back there and throw around. It could be dangerous. I'm really concerned about what they do with their slot receivers. They work very well in space. So our safeties, linebackers are really going to have to play a key part in making sure we control that passing game of theirs. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the up front, the big boys. It's always up there. How do we match up with that? Because ETN, he's good, man. He can find some gaps and some creases. So we have to maintain gap control and not let him get loose.
And then for a game like this, where there's all this attention, College Game Day in town, a former president coming to visit again, the buzz is there for a ball game like this. So you were a part of some huge games during not only your college days at Alabama, but in the NFL as well. How did you as a player kind of stay centered and keep your mind on the right things during a week like this?
Because ultimately it's about your teammates and, the coaching staff and the community. Because you can get lost in some of those things. You see all the stuff going on campus. They're putting up chairs and tents and, the RVs, motor coaches are rolling in. You got family all over the place. It's just the biggest game on the stage. And you can get lost in that early on, but then you have to reset, particularly as you get closer to this. Close the doors, close the windows, close your blinds, block out all the noise, because when you get ready to take that bus ride over to the stadium and you get off, you have to be totally locked in. So that's the difference between big time players a lot, because some people get caught up in all the other hoopla and what are people eating and doing all this kind of stuff. How we started, like I can do now. I'm going to be worried about how we tailgate. They can't be worried about the tailgating. They got to be worried about that first kickoff, and are they actually ready to go mentally for a game like this?
We know you're ready to win the tailgate. George Teague joining us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. What can you tell fans about what you're up to these days and how they can follow your work?
No, I appreciate it. So you can see this part right here. I actually am an athletic director at John Paul II High School in Plano, Texas, by day. Some of my other passions also include have my own podcast. So it's Teague's Take Podcast, where we actually talk Alabama football every single Wednesday night, 8:15 p.m. Central Time. We watch film. We go back and talk about it. I absolutely love it, which has led into me doing other things like I'm an NFL analyst on CBS Sports Texas here in Dallas. That's where I'm at, and also with DallasCowboys.com. So I get to stay around the game and in the game because of the film watching and trying to break it down. But this body, this shoulder right here, this neck right here, it's not up to par to go play anymore.
No, certainly not. For our Alabama fans that are also Dallas Cowboy fans, and there are a lot. Can the Cowboys bounce back after what we saw last week against the Ravens?
Can they bounce back? Yeah, we need them to bounce up because they've been down a whole lot too low. They got a good squad, but I just think this is going to be a difficult year for them, just because personnel has to match up. You can have key pieces. It's no different than college football or anything. It's very competitive, and if you don't have defensive linemen, which I don't think Alabama has right now, completely as good as it needs to be, and if you can't run the football, it makes it hard for you to win.
Certainly does. Well, George Teague, you did a lot of winning during your playing days here in Alabama, and we can't wait to have you back in town to enjoy not only all the great food, but the great football we're going to see on Saturday. Just thank you for your time. We look forward to catching up with you again down the road. Roll Tide, George.
Roll Tide.
The NASCAR playoffs are heading to the high banks of Talladega for what is to be a 3-race weekend for the record books. You're not going to want to miss out on this once-in-a-lifetime experience. Get your tickets now for the Talladega Playoffs event weekend, October 4th through the 6th at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. Some thoughts already from Chris Stewart and George Teague on Alabama against Georgia, but now it's time for the Georgia perspective. We always have the other booth presented by Marathon, visiting with the opponent's broadcaster, and once again, Scott Howard is our guest. As Alabama and Georgia, we've played a lot throughout the years, so Scott and I have gotten used to these conversations during game week, getting his thoughts on the Georgia Bulldogs, and it comes at an interesting point of the season with the game being this early in the year. Georgia's played 3 games, dealing with some injuries. Also, as you'll hear Scott talk about, dealing with some adversity due to the weather as well that may impact Georgia's travel plans. So some thoughts on that coming up from Scott Howard as we learn more about the Bulldogs from the voice of the Bulldogs, Scott Howard, on the other booth, presented by Marathon.
Scott, it is good to see you really once again. I feel like we were just talking to preview Alabama and Georgia in the championship game in Atlanta, but how's everything going for the Bulldogs now in 2024?
So far, so good. 3-0, coming off the off week. Trying to work on some things after the Kentucky game, not necessarily their best performance against Kentucky up in Lexington, but it seems like most of the folks associated with the program were kind of expecting that type of a ball game, rough and tough and tumble and all of that sort of thing. So back to work the last couple of weeks and getting ready to head to Tuscaloosa this weekend.
Well, I mentioned it hasn't been long since we last played with the SEC championship game last December, but how much has this Georgia roster changed from one season to the next, whether it's graduation, losing players to the NFL draft, or the transfer portal?
A pretty good bit, specifically on defense. They lost a good bit of their secondary to the NFL draft. So a lot of new faces, guys that were on the team before, but not necessarily in their roles that they are now. Injuries have affected the defensive line so far this year. So Georgia's trying to work through that. Offensively, it's pretty consistent as far as the roster. The back is back, of course, the quarterback, and most of the offensive line. Running back is a little bit of a different position with Trevor Etienne, the transfer from Florida, as the primary guy for the most part. Branson Robinson is back at one of the backs. He was out all of last year with an ACL tear. So he's coming back from that. But, there's mix and match at the wide receivers. They got some transfers in at that position in Colby Young and Michael Jackson from Southern Cal, Young from Miami, and London Humphreys from Vanderbilt. So other than that, those guys are mixing in the rotation. But every year they lose guys to the draft, just like Alabama. So it's a lot of replacement and a lot of good recruiting down the road to fill those spots.
Looking at Carson Beck back once again as Georgia's quarterback, what have you seen from him so far this year? And when he's at his best, what's he doing for the Bulldogs?
When he's at his best, he's getting Georgia into the right play. He's being accurate with his throws. He's not a panicky guy. He doesn't make something happen if it's not there. If the play's not there, he's going to live to play another day, which is something that Georgia certainly preaches a lot at that position. Don't force the issue. This season he's pretty steady. As I mentioned earlier, I don't think too many of the guys had great games at Kentucky, so that was a little bit of a downer. In fact, he passed for, I think it was the fewest yards he's thrown for as a starter for the last 2 years for Georgia. So Kentucky's defense played a good game against the Bulldogs 2 weeks ago, and but he's doing well. Health-wise, he's very good, and he's got command of the offense and command of the team, and certainly knows what he's doing.
And you mentioned Georgia trying to get healthy at this point as well. How have some injuries really impacted this team getting ready for Alabama?
Well, defensively, the defensive line has had just a bevy of guys that have missed time. Michael Williams has missed the last couple of games. Warren Brinson, and these guys were starters or regulars, throughout their career. Warren Brinson is fighting to get back into playing shape and get back on the field. Jordan Hall is another guy that got a lot of snaps last year. He's a sophomore this year and expected to play a lot. All of those guys have missed time here in the first 3 weeks of the season. And I'm not sure at this point, as we're doing this, what the availability is for Saturday's game. So hopefully, some of those guys, if not all of them, are available to play this weekend. But let's force Georgia to use some younger guys, change some guys at positions. Ty Ingram Dawkins has gotten a lot more snaps now. He was, I think, defensive lineman of the week in the SEC after Kentucky had a nice game in Lexington. So you're seeing some guys that maybe aren't really supposed to be getting as many snaps as expected, getting a lot more snaps now and trying to take advantage of opportunities. So that's the good news. The bad news is your frontline guys still aren't healthy enough to play, and that's always damaging because they're starters and they're frontline guys for a reason. So you want your best out there.
But how about the news about Tate Ratledge, and what does that do to the offensive line for Georgia?
He underwent some ankle surgery, so he's out for a little bit. Well, that takes away a lot of leadership, takes away a lot of experience, a ton of starts with Tate in his career. It's the next man up mentality. That's what everybody talks about, and Georgia's certainly no different there. So Micah Morris is in as one of the guards, and he's been in the rotation anyway. And Monroe Freeling is another guy that's in the rotation among the top 7 offensive linemen, and he can play tackle, he can play guard, and he can play both sides. So it's good to have that versatility there. But they miss Ratledge. He's a preseason All-SEC guy, and hopefully he comes back sooner rather than later. But So, when you're missing your starters, I mean, it's a bit of an issue, even though you may have other guys that can fill the void. But as I said, those guys are starters and leaders for a reason. So you want them out there.
Usually, getting ready for Alabama against Georgia, we kind of knew what to expect because both teams were built so similarly, especially on the defensive side of the ball. How much does it change what Alabama is now doing, both on offense and defense, no longer having Coach Saban in place?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess we'll find that out, right? I mean, you guys know your team better than I do, but just from watching a couple of games, it looks like Alabama is still Alabama. I mean, Coach Saban recruited all those guys that are on the team for the most part, and they're still playing solid Alabama football, and led by Milroe, the quarterback, and he's probably going to be the biggest handful for Georgia. The way he plays and the way he's able to run out of the pocket, and Georgia's had a bit of an issue with that the last few years. That teams that have running quarterbacks like that, or quarterbacks that can stretch plays out and kind of create on their own, at times have given Georgia some issues. So I would say, Georgia's expecting the full force of the Alabama Crimson Tide like they used to get when Coach Saban was there.
Certainly should be a fun matchup. Alabama against Georgia coming up on Saturday. What else is coming up for the Bulldogs after this week is done? We know you've already taken on Clemson, most notably Kentucky as well in SEC play, but what does the road ahead look like for Georgia after this week?
We get a home game in the SEC for a change. We haven't had one yet, so we'll play our SEC home opener against Auburn a week from Saturday. So Auburn comes to town, followed by Mississippi State, and then Georgia goes to Texas. So that's the next three, and then they get an off week before Florida. So the schedule is not kind at all in this league. And man, Georgia they got it stacked against them this year with Alabama and Texas and Ole Miss all on the road, and all of those teams in the top 10, and Texas #1 right now in some of the polls. So it's a tough road to hoe in this league every year, and certainly that's going to start. The gauntlet, I guess, is going to start this Saturday in Tuscaloosa for Georgia.
Is it still hard to wrap your head around Auburn the first weekend of October, as we got used to that matchup so late in the year? You guys always played Auburn and Georgia Tech. It seemed like to close out every season.
That and Kentucky, we've never played them in September outside of 1942. And we play them, as the SEC opener a couple of weeks ago. That's strange. Tennessee, where they are on the schedule in late November now, is strange. So it's all jumbled up, and I guess that's what we have to get used to moving ahead in college football. Just changes and more changes stacked on top of one another. But hopefully this weekend is good, and they'll think about those dates and the other games a little bit later on down the line.
Absolutely. Well, this week it's Alabama against Georgia. Who knows, Scott? We could be talking again, getting ready for Atlanta or the college football playoffs again this year. It's exciting to see these teams come together, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Just thank you for all the time you've given us breaking down the Bulldogs. Safe travels.
Thanks, Roger. Just a boring old regular season game this week. How about that? No trophy on the line, so should be a walk in the park, right? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Jumpy Bernard here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR.
Friends, check out Game Day Done Right, because there's one thing we can really all agree on. No one wants to be the last one left at a tailgate at the end of the game, having to do all the cleanup, all the breakdown while their friends are out celebrating. If you've been in this situation before, you know the true value in what the team at Game Day Done Right provides. They handle the entire process for you, from setup to breakdown. Stellar customer service on game days to make sure your group is taken care of from start to finish. All you have to do is visit GameDayDoneRight.com, reserve your tailgate package, and let their team take it from there. Well, we're really excited for Alabama against Georgia coming up on Saturday, but that's not the only thing going on here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network as we take a look at our upcoming schedule for this week. Tomorrow, a new episode of Tide TV This Week will hit YouTube on the Alabama Athletics YouTube channel, RolledTide.com, and our TV affiliates across the state. Mary Regan Bowlig and I host Tide TV This Week coming up for this September 27th. And then on Saturday, football. It's Alabama against Georgia. 3:30 will be our start time, and with some increased security measures, we will not be outside for the pregame show at Vector Security Champions Lane, but do know that our coverage will start at 3:30 across the network, leading you up to the 6:30 kick. And don't forget as well, you can not only listen on the radio network, Varsity Network app, but make sure you watch the booth cam presented by Yay Alabama. It'll be streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. All of our social media platforms, stay up to date on that and when you can get the booth cam presented by Yay Alabama. On Sunday, Chris Stewart and Kalen DeBoer will talk about the game, really break it down with film on the Kalen DeBoer television show to our TV affiliates across the state, as well as RolledTide.com. And then on Monday, it'll be Crimson Tide Rewind at 6 p.m., Baumhower's Victory Grill. Corey Reamer and I will talk about not just that game against Georgia, but we'll start to look ahead to Alabama's next road trip to Nashville to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores, as Vanderbilt Week will start on Monday. And then, of course, we'll be back with Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, Tuesday and Thursday, streaming live at 2 p.m. right here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network social media platforms. That's a look at our upcoming schedule. And again, make sure you follow the Crimson Tide Sports Network at UACTSN for the very latest. Well, that's going to wrap up this show as we say thank you to our guests, Jahlil Hurley, Chris Stewart, George Teague, Scott Howard for joining us. We say thank you to Ethan Carabin, our video producer, who put this entire show together. And before we go, we always like to close out our Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, by hearing from the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, Kalen DeBoer, as we listen back to his final word from last night's edition of Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show. Here's what Coach DeBoer had to say about Alabama against Georgia this Saturday. We look forward to seeing you there, everyone. Roll Tide.
There's a lot been talked about with this game coming up, and I'm gonna ask you. This isn't about the game. I think it's just about celebrating guys like this, and I hope all the fans just understand, where we're at right now and how we got to this point. It's not a finished product, but we are making great progress because of guys like this that believed in this place back in January and February. Stayed the course, brought others with them, and, we're making that progress. We're improving each and every day, and, it's going to put us in a spot where, we expect to step on the football field and be successful each and every Saturday, and that's this Saturday.